Hello there. Go ahead and find a comfortable place to settle in for the night. You can let your body start to feel its own weight, and just allow the noise of the day to begin to fade. Tonight, we're going to take a quiet walk through a very old and a very strange little book. It's called the Tao Te Ching, and while some people have called it the wisest book ever written, it's probably not wise in the way that we're used to. It isn't a book full of clear instructions or easy answers. In fact, the very first line of the book basically says that the moment you think you've understood it, you've already missed the point. Which, honestly, is a pretty strange way to start a book. But that's actually the secret to its power. This isn't a book that wants you to think harder. It's a book that wants to help you think a little bit less. It's a collection of short, quiet, and sometimes very confusing little poems that are all pointing toward the same simple idea. That peace is found not in struggling, but in letting go. Not in forcing, but in flowing. So this isn't going to be a lecture. You don't have to remember any of this. Just think of it like we're taking a slow, late-night walk down a quiet path in a forest. And every once in a while, we're going to stop and look at an interesting stone or a strange leaf on the ground. We're just going to look at a few of the quiet ideas from this ancient book. Your only job is to relax and to let these ideas drift by as you get ready for a deep and a very peaceful rest. Let's begin our walk at the very beginning. Not the beginning of your day, but the beginning of everything. Most stories about how the world began start with a character. They start with a great and powerful being or a group of gods who decide to create the universe. There is a plan, an act of will, a great and a noisy moment of creation. The Tao Te Ching starts in a much quieter and a much stranger place. It asks us to imagine what was there before the beginning, before the first God, before the first thought, before the first anything. It gives this great, silent, and mysterious source a name. The name is the Tao. It means, quite simply, the way. But then, in the very first line of the book, it does something very confusing. It tells you that the name it just gave you isn't the real name. It says, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. What this means is that the moment you put a word on it, the moment you try to wrap your mind around it and turn it into a neat and a tidy concept, you've already missed the point. The source of all things is too vast and too mysterious to ever be captured by a simple human word. So how can we even begin to think about it? The book invites us to think about it not as a thing, but as a kind of principle. Think of the silence that exists just before a beautiful piece of music begins. That silence doesn't do anything, but without it, there could be no music. Or think of the deep, empty blackness of space that was there before the first star ignited. That emptiness wasn't a being, but it was the womb from which all the stars were born. This is the Tao. It is the great, silent, and nameless potential from which everything in the universe, from the smallest speck of dust to the most distant galaxy, arises. It is not a being. It is not a god. It has no personality, no will, no plan. It is a process that is as natural and as silent and as effortless as a seed sprouting in the dark. And this is where we find our first and our most profound piece of quiet. The thing that created everything, the very source of our own existence, did so without any effort at all. It did not struggle. It did not strive. It did not worry about getting it right. It simply and silently unfolded. And as you lie here now, you can just let your mind rest in that idea. The idea that you are a small part of a universe that was born not from a great and a noisy battle, but from a deep and a silent and an effortless unfolding. And that same silent, effortless, and deeply peaceful energy that created the entire cosmos is the very same energy that is gently and quietly inviting you to rest right now. After introducing this great and this silent and this nameless way, this Tao, the book seems to understand the very next question that would pop into a person's mind. How can I even begin to understand something that you've just told me is impossible to name or to describe? And the answer it gives is not a complicated philosophical argument. It is an invitation to look at something simple, something you have known your entire life, something you can find in a river, in the rain, or in a simple glass on your table. It tells you to look at water. In the Tao Te Ching, water is the closest physical thing we have to a perfect reflection of the Tao itself. And it is the greatest teacher of a very strange and a very quiet kind of strength. When we think of strength, we usually think of things that are hard. A great rock, a mighty oak tree, a solid wall of iron. We think of strength as something that is rigid and unbending and forceful. And then there is water. Water is the softest thing in the world. It is yielding. It has no shape of its own. It is happy to take the shape of whatever contains it. If you strike it with your fist, you cannot hurt it. It doesn't resist. It just yields, and then it is unchanged. It seems, by all of our usual definitions, to be weak. And yet, the book asks us to look again. A small and a patient and a very soft stream of water flowing over a great, hard rock for a very long time will eventually wear that rock down to nothing. A river, the softest thing, can carve a great canyon through a mountain of the hardest stone. It does not do this with a single great act of violence. It does this through its patient and its gentle and its relentless yielding. The softest thing in the world, the book tells us, can overcome the hardest thing in the world. This is the first secret of water. The second secret is that water is humble. It always seeks the lowest place. If you pour it out, it does not try to climb. It flows naturally and without any effort to the ground. In a world where we are all taught to strive, to climb, to get to the top, water is content to be lowly. But in doing this, it gathers its great power. All the small streams, by seeking the lowest place, eventually join together to become a great and a mighty river, and then the vast and the powerful ocean. The book tells us that by being humble, by not needing to be the center of attention, water finds its greatest strength. And the final, quiet lesson of water is that it gives its life to everything, without asking for anything in return. It nourishes the trees, the fields, the animals, and us. It allows all of life to flourish. And it does not do this because it is trying to be good. It does not do this as a great act of will. It just flows. It just is. And in its simple, effortless being, it is the greatest force for good in the world. And this is the quiet lesson for us as we lie here now. The Tao Te Ching invites us to be a little more like water. It invites us to let go of our need to be hard and rigid and forceful, to see if we can be a little more yielding, a little more humble, to see if we can let go of all the hard and the anxious and the striving effort of our day, and just allow ourselves, like water, to seek the low and the quiet and the peaceful place of rest. It's a strange compliment to be called useless. In our world, it's one of the worst things you can be. To be useless is to be without value, to be a burden, to be a failure. We spend our entire lives, from a very young age, trying to prove our own usefulness. We want to be a useful employee, a useful friend, a useful member of society. The pressure to be productive, to be valuable, is the great engine that drives so much of our daily lives. But in the quiet, upside-down world of the Tao Te Ching, to be useless is to be very, very wise. And to understand this, the old Taoist masters would tell a simple story. They would ask you to imagine a carpenter walking into a great forest looking for wood. The carpenter is a very practical man. He is looking for a certain kind of tree. He is looking for a useful tree, a tree that is tall and straight and strong, with a good, clean grain. And soon, he finds the perfect one. It is a magnificent tree, rising straight up toward the sky. The carpenter looks at it with admiration. He thinks, this is a wonderful and a very useful tree. I can make a great beam for a house from its trunk. I can make a beautiful, sturdy table from its wood. I can make many chairs. And because the tree is so useful, so perfectly suited for the carpenter's purpose, he takes out his axe and he cuts it down. And the tree's long, natural life is over. Its usefulness has led directly to its own destruction. But then, the carpenter walks a little further and he comes across another tree. And this tree is the exact opposite. It is not tall and straight. It is a great, gnarled, and completely uncooperative looking tree. Its trunk is short and knotty. Its branches twist and turn in 100 different directions. The carpenter looks at it and he scoffs. He thinks, this tree is completely useless. Its wood is twisted and full of knots. I can't make anything out of it at all. And because the tree is so completely and wonderfully useless, the carpenter just shakes his head and he walks away, leaving the tree in peace. And what happens to this useless tree? It gets to live out its long and its full and its natural life. Its gnarled branches grow wider and wider, providing shade for the animals of the forest. Birds build their nests in its twisted limbs. It grows old and it grows vast, and it becomes a great and a beautiful and a deeply respected presence in the forest, precisely because it never fit the world's narrow definition of being useful. It was useless for the carpenter's purpose, but it was perfectly suited for its own natural purpose, the purpose of just being a tree. And this is where this ancient idea can bring a little bit of quiet to our own, very modern minds. Because so many of us spend our lives trying to be that perfect, straight-grained tree. We try to be efficient. We try to be productive. We try to fit perfectly into the plans that our society has for us. And the anxiety of our own to-do list, the pressure to prove our own worth, is the sound of that carpenter's axe, always in the back of our minds. And so, as you lie here now, this quiet philosophy offers you a wonderful gift. It is the permission, just for tonight, to be completely and utterly useless. For these next few hours, you do not have to be productive. You do not have to be valuable to anyone else. You are not a piece of timber waiting to be made into something. You are the gnarled and the beautiful and the completely untroubled old tree. And your only job, your only true and natural purpose for right now, is to just be here and to rest. Let's stay with this strange, upside-down wisdom for a little while longer. We have just heard the praise of the useless tree. Now, let's look at another, equally simple and equally profound idea from the Tao Te Ching. It is the idea of the great and the powerful usefulness of being empty. In our world, we are obsessed with the idea of being full. We want to have a full schedule. We want to have a full bank account. We want our minds to be full of knowledge and our lives to be full of experiences. The state of being full is seen as a sign of success, of richness, of a life that is being well lived. And the state of being empty is often seen as a problem to be solved. An empty space is something that we feel a deep and a powerful urge to fill up. But the Tao Te Ching asks us to stop for a moment and to look at a simple object. An object that is probably in your own kitchen right now. It asks us to look at a clay bowl, and it asks a very simple question. What is the most useful part of a bowl? Our first thought might be the clay itself, the solid part, the walls and the base that give the bowl its shape and its strength. And yes, of course, these are important. Without them, there would be no bowl at all. But the old Taoist masters would smile gently and say, no, that is not the most useful part. The most useful part of the bowl, the part that gives the bowl its entire reason for being, is the part that is not there. It is the emptiness in the middle. It is the empty space, the nothing, that allows the bowl to hold water or rice or anything at all. The solid clay is only useful because it defines and it contains this emptiness. The purpose of the bowl is in its being empty. If you were to fill that bowl with solid clay, if you were to make it completely full, it would no longer be a bowl. It would be a useless lump. And the book tells us that this is true for so many things. It is the empty space in the middle of a wheel, the hole for the axle, that allows the wheel to turn and the cart to move. It is the empty space inside a room, the space defined by the walls and the ceiling that allows us to live in it. It is the empty doorway, the nothing in the middle of a solid wall, that allows us to enter and to leave. The usefulness of what is there depends entirely on the usefulness of what is not there. And this is a profound and a very calming thought for us as we lie here now, because our own minds can often feel a little bit like that bowl that has been filled with solid clay. All day long, we fill them up. We fill them with facts, with opinions, with worries, with plans, with memories, with conversations. And by the end of the day, there is no empty space left. The mind is completely full, and a mind that is completely full is, in its own way, a useless thing. It cannot receive anything new. It cannot find any real clarity. And most importantly, it cannot find any rest. So, the gentle wisdom of the Tao Te Ching, the wisdom of the empty bowl, is an invitation. It is an invitation to value the emptiness. It is the permission to not always be full. As you lie here now, you can gently begin to let your own mind become an empty bowl again. You can let the worries of the day, the plans for tomorrow, the fullness of your own thoughts, just gently pour out. You don't have to replace them with anything. You can just allow a quiet and a still and a beautifully empty space to remain. Because it is only in this quiet and this powerful and this deeply useful emptiness that the peace you are looking for can finally have a place to be held. We have now explored some of these quiet and these strange and these very simple ideas from the Tao Te Ching, the wisdom of water, the usefulness of an empty bowl, and all of these ideas are flowing like small streams toward one great and a very still and a very peaceful river. And this river has a name. The name is Wu Wei. Now, these two small words are probably the most famous and the most misunderstood concept in all of Taoist philosophy. The most direct translation of Wu Wei is something like non-action or non-doing. And when we hear that, our modern and our very busy minds can immediately jump to the wrong conclusion. Non-doing sounds a lot like being lazy. It sounds like sitting on the sofa all day, doing nothing at all. It sounds like a philosophy of apathy, of just letting the world fall apart around you. But this is not at all what it means. To understand Wu Wei, it helps to think not about what you are doing, but about how you are doing it. It is not about the action, but about the quality of the energy behind the action. The opposite of Wu Wei is a kind of forced and a very strained and a very anxious kind of effort. It is the feeling of trying to paddle a boat furiously upstream against a very strong current. It is a feeling of struggle, of resistance, of a tense and a white-knuckled kind of striving. This is how many of us spend our days. We are trying to force things to happen. We are trying to bend the world and other people to our own will. And the result of this is a deep and a profound and a very familiar kind of exhaustion. Wu Wei, then, is the exact opposite of this. It is not about stopping all action. It is about stopping the struggle. It is the art of effortless action. It is the wisdom of putting down the paddle, turning your boat around, and just allowing the natural current of the river to carry you. Think of a master craftsman, a potter at his wheel. When he is in a state of flow, he is not thinking, now I must push here, now I must pull there. His hands just move. He is not fighting the clay. He is in a kind of dance with the clay. His action is so perfectly aligned with the nature of his task that it feels as if he is doing nothing at all. And yet, from this state of non-doing, a beautiful and a perfect bowl emerges. This is Wu Wei. Think of a great tree growing in a forest. It does not strain to grow taller. It does not worry about producing enough leaves. It does not anxiously check its own progress. It just is. It just stands there, silently following the deep and the natural and the effortless law of its own being. And in this state of profound non-doing, it becomes a magnificent and a powerful being. This, too, is Wu Wei. And this is the gentle and the deeply calming state of mind that the Tao Te Ching is inviting us into tonight. As you lie here now, you can begin to practice your own form of Wu Wei. You can let go of the tense and the anxious and the effortful work of trying to get to sleep. That is a form of striving. That is paddling against the current. Instead, you can just be. You can allow yourself to float. You can trust the deep and the quiet and the very wise current of your own body, which knows exactly how to find its way to the great and the silent and the very peaceful ocean of rest. Your only task is to stop paddling, to stop struggling, and to just allow the gentle and the natural and the completely effortless process of letting go to happen all on its own. Let's explore another of these simple and these very quiet metaphors from the Tao Te Ching. We have seen the wisdom of water and of the empty bowl. Now, let's look at the wisdom of a simple and a very humble object. An object that is so plain and so boring that we would probably not even notice it if we saw it. It is the wisdom of the uncarved block. The Chinese word for this is pu, and it refers to a simple, unadorned, and a completely natural piece of wood. It is a piece of wood as it was found in the forest. It has not been carved, or sanded, or painted, or shaped to fit some specific human purpose. It is just wood, in its original, and its simple, and its perfectly natural state. And in the world of the Tao Te Ching, this simple, boring, and uncarved block is a symbol for the highest and the most peaceful state of being that a person can find. Why would this be? Because our lives, from a very young age, are a process of being carved. We are born as simple, natural beings. But then the world gets to work on us. Our parents, our teachers, our society, they are all like well-intentioned carpenters. They begin to shape us. They give us a name. They give us labels. They teach us to be a good student, or a successful employee, or a responsible adult. They carve us into a specific and a useful shape. And we do this to ourselves, too. Our own inner expert is a master carver. It is constantly trying to shape us, to improve us. It carves away at our personality, trying to make us more clever, more interesting, more likable. It is always sanding down our rough edges, trying to make us smoother, more polished, more perfect. And what is the result of all this carving? The result is that we can end up feeling very far away from the simple, natural person we started as. We can feel like we are a collection of complicated roles that we are playing, rather than a simple, solid being. And the process of all this carving, all this constant self-improvement, is very, very tiring. It is a state of constant and of endless and of deeply exhausting effort. The wisdom of the uncarved block is an invitation to stop this process. It is a gentle reminder that our true nature, our deepest and most peaceful self, is not something we have to create. It is something we have to return to. It is the permission to let go of all the complicated labels and all the demanding roles, and to just be a simple, solid, and a natural thing, like a piece of wood. As you lie here now, you do not have to be a successful person. You do not have to be a clever person. You do not even have to be a good person. All of that is the work of the carver. All of that is the world of striving. Tonight, you can just be the uncarved block. You can be a simple and a solid and a quiet presence. A being that is not trying to be anything other than what it is. A being that is not being judged for its shape or its usefulness or its polish. And in this state, there is a profound and a very simple kind of peace. It is the peace of no longer having to perform. It is the deep and the quiet and the very solid contentment of just being yourself, in your own simple and your own natural and your own perfectly uncarven state. It is the profound and the deeply restful wisdom of just letting yourself be. We have spent a little time now with this quiet and this very solid idea of the uncarved block, the peace that comes from returning to our own simple and our own natural state of being. A natural question to ask then is, how does a person like this, a person who is not striving or trying to be anything special, behave in the world? How do they interact with other people? The Tao Te Ching answers this with another of its strange and its beautiful paradoxes. It talks about the 4 different kinds of leaders or rulers, and in doing so, it gives us a quiet guide to becoming a better and a much calmer ruler of our own inner world. The book says that the worst kind of ruler is the one who is hated and feared. This is the tyrant. He rules through force and through intimidation. His people follow his orders, but they do so with resentment in their hearts. This is a state of constant, low-level conflict. The next best kind of ruler, it says, is the one who is loved and praised. Now this is a surprise. We would think that to be loved and praised is the very best thing a leader could be. But the Tao Te Ching sees a subtle problem here. The leader who is loved and praised is still a very visible presence. The people are dependent on him. They look up to him as a great hero. Their success feels like his success. He is the sun, and they are the planets that revolve around him. It is a state of dependence. The next best ruler, it says, is the one who is simply respected. He is a distant figure. He does his job well. The people follow his laws. They do not love him, but they do not fear him. He is a good and a functional administrator. And then, it tells us about the very best kind of ruler, the one who has truly mastered the way. And it says that the greatest leader of all is the one the people barely know exists. This is a strange and a beautiful idea. The greatest leader is a ghost, a whisper, a quiet and almost invisible presence. He does not make grand speeches. He does not issue dramatic commands. He does not try to be a great hero. He moves so quietly and so skillfully and so in harmony with the natural way of things that when the work is done, when the harvest is in, when the city is at peace, the people all look at each other and they say, "We did this ourselves." This is the leader who is like water, who seeks the lowest place and nourishes everything without asking for thanks. This is the leader who is like the uncarved block, who does not need to be carved into the shape of a great and important person. And this is where this ancient piece of political advice becomes a profound and a very calming guide for our own minds, right here, tonight. Because inside our own heads, we also have these different kinds of rulers. Sometimes, we try to rule our own minds like the tyrant. This is the voice of our inner critic, our inner taskmaster. It says, "You must relax. You must fall asleep now." It tries to force our mind into a state of peace, and in doing so, it just creates more conflict and more stress. Other times, we try to be the great hero of our own minds. We try to perform great feats of willpower, to wrestle our anxieties into submission. We want to be able to praise ourselves for being good at relaxing. But this, too, is a form of striving. The Tao Te Ching invites us to be the 4th kind of ruler, the quiet and the wise and the almost invisible leader of our own inner world. The one who does not need to force anything. The one who does not need to be a hero. The one who simply and gently and quietly creates the conditions for peace and then gets out of the way. You can be this ruler tonight. You can gently create the conditions for rest, the quiet room, the comfortable bed, and then you can just trust. You can trust the deep and the natural wisdom of your own people, the tired parts of your body, the quiet parts of your mind, to find their own way to the great and the peaceful harvest of sleep. And when they do, they will think, "We did this ourselves." Let's stay with this idea of a different kind of leadership, a different kind of strength. In our world, in almost every story we tell, from the movies we watch to the careers we pursue, the goal is always to go up, to climb the ladder, to be bigger and stronger and more important. We are taught that strength is found in being above others, in having more power, in having a louder voice. The Tao Te Ching looks at this entire way of thinking, and it gently and quietly suggests that we have it completely backwards. It asks us to look again at the natural world, Look at the great and powerful ocean. How did it become the master of 1,000 rivers and streams? It did not do it by being high and mighty. It did it by being lower than all of them. Because it is the lowest place, all the waters of the world naturally flow into it, without any effort at all. Its great power comes directly from its profound humility. Or look at a deep and a quiet valley. The valley does not strive to be a mountain peak. It is content to be the empty space between the mountains. And because it is empty and low, the rain gathers there. The soil becomes rich. The seeds take root. The valley becomes a place of great life and of great nourishment, not by being forceful, but by being receptive. This is the strange and the beautiful paradox that runs like a quiet river through this entire book. It is the idea that true strength is found not in being high, but in being low, not in being full, but in being empty, not in being forceful, but in being yielding. And this gives us a wonderful and a very freeing piece of wisdom. It is the surprising freedom of being small. In our daily lives, we spend so much energy trying to puff ourselves up. We try to appear more confident than we are. We try to seem smarter than we feel. We try to project an image of success and of having it all figured out. This is a very tiring and a very stressful performance. It is a constant, low-level effort to maintain an image, to stay on top. But what if you didn't have to? What if, just for tonight, you could give yourself permission to be the valley instead of the mountain peak? What if you could let go of the need to be the smartest person in the room? What if you could just be a quiet and a humble and a receptive listener? What if you could let go of the need to always be strong and in control? What if you could allow yourself to be soft and to be vulnerable and to be a little bit uncertain, like the flowing water? As you lie here now, you can gently let go of all the roles you have to play during the day. You don't have to be the boss. You don't have to be the expert. You don't have to be the strong one. All of that is the hard and the tiring work of trying to be a mountain. Tonight, you can just be a valley. You can be a low and a quiet and a receptive place. You can be the empty bowl. You can be the humble water. And in this state of quiet and of gentle humility, something wonderful can happen. You stop fighting. You stop striving. You stop performing. And all of that energy that you were using to maintain your high position can now be used for something else. It can be used to heal. It can be used to rest. This is the great and the surprising freedom of being small. It is the deep and the quiet and the profoundly calming peace that comes when you finally and gratefully let yourself off the hook of having to be important. We've talked about the peace of being like a valley, of being receptive and humble. And this brings us to another very simple and a very practical piece of wisdom from the Tao Te Ching. It is a piece of wisdom about one of the most difficult skills in the world, the skill of knowing when to stop. The book puts it this way: it is better to leave a cup unfilled than to carry it when it is full. And then it adds another line: a blade that has been sharpened to its very finest point will not hold its edge for long. Let's just rest with that first image for a moment. The image of a cup. Imagine you are filling a cup with water. You turn on the tap, and the water flows, and the cup begins to fill. And there is a perfect moment, just before the water reaches the very brim, when the cup is full. It is in a state of perfect, and of peaceful, and of useful completion. It has fulfilled its purpose. But our natural tendency is to not stop there. The part of our mind that always wants a little bit more, the part that believes that more is always better, will keep the tap running. And what happens when you keep filling a cup that is already full? The water begins to spill over the sides. It makes a mess. It is a waste. And not only that, but the cup is now heavy, and it is awkward to carry. It is a less useful and a much more stressful object than it was a moment before. This simple and this very boring image is a perfect metaphor for so many parts of our lives. Think of your work. We work hard. We are productive, and we reach a point in the day where a good amount of work has been done. The cup is full, but the voice in our head, the one that is always pushing for more, tells us to keep going. to answer one more email, to finish one more task. And in doing so, we push ourselves past the point of healthy effort and into the messy, spilling over state of burnout and exhaustion. We have sharpened the blade of our focus to such a fine point that it breaks. Think of a good conversation with a friend. It reaches a natural and a beautiful and a satisfying conclusion. The cup is full, but our desire to keep the good feeling going can lead us to talk for too long, to circle back over the same points, until the energy of the conversation begins to spill and it becomes a little bit tired, a little less wonderful than it was. And think of your own thoughts, right here, as you are lying in bed. You have lived your day. You have thought your thoughts. The cup of your mind is full. And yet, the mind wants to keep going. It wants to re-examine one more memory. It wants to analyze one more worry. It keeps pouring more and more thoughts into a cup that is already overflowing, creating a messy and a stressful and a very unproductive state of mental spillover. The wisdom of the Tao Te Ching is the quiet and the gentle and the deeply compassionate art of knowing when the cup is full. It is the wisdom to know when enough is enough. It is the skill of ending your workday when the work is done and not a moment later. It is the skill of ending a conversation at its natural peak. And for tonight, it is the skill of looking at your own mind, acknowledging all the thinking it has already done today, and saying, with a gentle and a firm kindness, the cup is full. The blade is sharp. The work is done. It is time now to stop. And in this simple and this wise and this deeply calming act of just stopping, you can prevent the spill. You can preserve your energy. And you can allow your mind to rest in that quiet and that peaceful and that deeply satisfying state of a task that is finally and truly and completely finished. Let's return for a little while to that beautiful and that very quiet metaphor we touched on at the beginning of our walk, the metaphor of water. Because in the entire Tao Te Ching, there is no single image that is more important or more central to its strange and its gentle wisdom. And the book makes a very bold and a very paradoxical claim. It says that there is nothing in the entire world that is softer or more yielding than water. And yet, it also says that for attacking things that are hard and strong, there is nothing that can surpass it. This is an idea that goes against all of our most basic instincts. Our instincts and our entire culture teach us that to overcome a hard and a difficult obstacle, you must meet it with an even greater hardness. You must meet force with more force. You must be strong and rigid and unbending. But the Tao Te Ching invites us to look at the world a little more closely and a little more patiently. And it asks us to see that this is not the way that nature actually works. Think again of that great and that stubborn and that unmovable looking rock in the middle of a river. If you were to go at that rock with a hammer, a hard thing, you might be able to chip a few small pieces off of it. But you would exhaust your own strength, and the rock would, for the most part, remain unchanged. But the water, the river, has a completely different strategy. It does not attack the rock. It does not try to smash it. It simply and gently and patiently yields to it. It flows around it. It embraces it. It never, ever stops its soft and its persistent movement. And over a very, very long period of time, the constant, gentle pressure of the softest thing in the world will wear that great, hard rock down to a smooth and a tiny pebble. The water wins, not by fighting, but by not fighting. It wins by being patient, by being persistent, and by being soft. And this is not just a lesson about geology. It is a profound and a very practical piece of advice for how to deal with the hard and the difficult obstacles in our own lives and in our own minds. Think of a problem that is keeping you awake at night. A difficult situation at work, a conflict with a person you love, a deep-seated worry. Our first instinct is to treat this problem like that great, hard rock. We attack it with the hard hammer of our own forceful, anxious thinking. We throw all of our mental energy at it. We try to smash it into a solution. and we usually just end up feeling exhausted, and the problem, the rock, remains just as large and as stubborn as it was before. The wisdom of the Tao Te Ching invites us to try a different way. It invites us to be like the water. What would this mean? It would mean that instead of attacking the problem with more and more hard and more anxious thought, you can just soften around it. You can yield to its presence. You can acknowledge that it is there, and you can just gently and patiently and persistently allow the soft and the flowing waters of your own quiet awareness to wash over it. You are not trying to solve it in this moment. You are not trying to force it to go away. You are just being with it in a soft and a yielding and a very patient way. And a strange thing can happen when you do this. When you stop fighting the rock, when you stop giving it all of your heart and your resistant and your fearful energy, it can sometimes begin to feel a little bit smaller. Its hard edges can begin to feel a little bit softer. This is the deep and the quiet and the surprisingly powerful strength that is found in softness. It is the strength that you can find right now as you lie here. The strength to stop fighting the hard worries in your own mind and to just allow the soft and the gentle and the deeply calming waters of your own quiet breath to flow and to yield and to slowly and patiently and in their own time wear them away. Let's stay with this idea of a different kind of strength, a different kind of effectiveness. We have just seen the quiet power of water, the softest thing, to overcome the hardest. Now, let's look at another, very simple and a very practical paradox from the Tao Te Ching. It is the paradox of the sharp tool. The book says, "A blade that has been sharpened to its very finest point will not hold its edge for long." This is an idea that, at first, seems to go against everything we are taught about success and about being effective. In our world, to be sharp is the highest compliment. We want to have a sharp mind. We want to be at the sharp end of our profession. We believe that the key to getting things done is to be constantly honing our skills, constantly pushing, constantly maintaining a state of peak performance and of razor-sharp focus. And the Tao Te Ching does not say that this is wrong. A sharp blade is, of course, a very useful and a very effective thing. But it is pointing to a quiet and a very subtle and a very important truth. The truth is that the state of being perfectly sharp is, by its very nature, a fragile and a temporary one. Imagine a master chef with his favorite knife. He has spent hours sharpening it on a whetstone until its edge is so fine that it can slice through a tomato with almost no pressure at all. In that moment, it is a perfect tool. But what happens the moment he begins to use it? With every single slice, every single time the fine edge makes contact with the cutting board, a tiny and an almost imperceptible amount of that sharpness is lost. The very act of being useful, the very act of performing its function, is what begins the slow and the inevitable process of it becoming dull again. To use the sharpness is to lose the sharpness. And the master chef knows this. He does not get angry at the knife for becoming dull. He understands that this is the natural cycle of things. And he knows that after a period of intense use, the knife will need a period of rest. It will need a period of quiet and of patient and of gentle restoration to find its edge once again. This is the deep and the quiet and the very compassionate wisdom that the Tao Te Ching is offering to us. Because our own minds and our own bodies are very much like that knife. All day long, we are trying to be sharp. We are trying to be focused at work. We are trying to be a sharp and an attentive listener for our friends and our family. We are using the fine edge of our own energy, our own willpower, our own attention. And we are, with every single task we perform and every single interaction we have, slowly and naturally, becoming a little bit duller. And our inner expert, the part of our mind that believes in constant, peak performance, can see this process and it can become very frustrated. It can see our focus beginning to fade at the end of the day, and it can say, "What's wrong with you? You should still be sharp." It can feel our willpower waning, and it can judge us for being weak. It is like a chef who is angry at his knife for the simple, natural fact that using it makes it dull. But the Taoist wisdom is much kinder. It invites us to see the dullness that we feel at the end of the day not as a failure, but as a natural and an inevitable consequence of a day well lived. To be dull now is the proof that you were sharp earlier. To be tired now is the proof that you gave your energy to the world. And what does a dull blade need? It does not need to be judged. It does not need to be criticized. It simply needs to be put away. It needs a period of profound and of deep and of completely non-judgmental rest. And that is what this time, right now, is for. This is the time to take the tool of your own mind, a tool that has worked so hard and has served you so well, and to just gently and lovingly put it back in its sheath. You are not broken. You are not a failure. You are just a good and a well-used knife that is now, finally, and rightfully at rest. Let's talk about one of the most common and one of the most tiring activities that our minds love to engage in, especially in the quiet of the night. It is the activity of arguing. Now, I don't just mean the loud, external arguments that we sometimes have with other people. I also mean the silent and the endless and the often very repetitive arguments that we have inside our own heads. Maybe your mind, right now, is replaying a disagreement you had with someone today. It is acting like a lawyer, preparing its case. It is gathering its evidence. It is rehearsing all the clever and the perfect and the devastatingly witty things that you should have said. It is trying, in the silent courtroom of your own mind, to finally and definitively win that argument. Or maybe your mind is preparing for a future argument. It is anticipating a difficult conversation you need to have tomorrow, and it is running through all the possible moves and countermoves, trying to create a perfect and an unbeatable strategy. This is very hard work. It is a state of mental conflict. It is a state of tension, and it is fueled by one of the most powerful and one of the most deep-seated of all our human desires, the desire to be right. The Tao Te Ching looks at this entire, exhausting process, and it offers, as it always does, a strange and a quiet and a deeply paradoxical piece of advice. It says that the only way to truly win an argument is to let go of the need to win it in the first place. It tells a little story. It says, "Because he does not contend, no one in the world can contend with him." Let's just rest with that idea for a moment. Because he does not contend, no one can contend with him. What does this mean? It means that the moment you enter into an argument, the moment you decide that your goal is to prove that you are right and the other person is wrong, you have already, in a very real way, lost. You have lost your peace of mind. You have handed over your own inner state of calm to the other person and to the outcome of the debate. Your inner world is no longer your own. It is now caught in a stressful and an uncertain and a deeply tiring dance with someone else. The wise person, the book suggests, makes a different choice. They do not engage in the battle. This does not mean they are weak. It does not mean they are a doormat. It does not mean they don't have their own truth. It just means they understand that their own inner tranquility is infinitely more valuable than the small and the temporary and the very fragile victory of being right. Think again about water. If you try to build a dam to stop a river, the river does not get angry and try to smash the dam with a great, forceful blow. It simply and patiently yields. It stops, and it begins to gather its strength. It grows deeper and wider and quieter, and eventually its own quiet and immense weight will just find a way around the dam, or it will gently push it over, not with anger, but with the simple and the undeniable and the very patient force of its own nature. And this is a profound and a very practical piece of advice for us as we lie here tonight with our own silent, internal arguments. Think of that disagreement you are replaying in your mind, the one you are so desperately trying to win. And now, just for a moment, see if you can be like the water. See if you can just let it go. You don't have to prove that you were right. You don't have to come up with the perfect comeback. You can just allow the other person's opinion to be their opinion, and you can allow your opinion to be your opinion. You can let the dam be the dam, and you can just quietly and gently, and with a great sense of relief, withdraw your own energy from the conflict. You can refuse to contend. And the moment you do this, a wonderful and a very peaceful thing happens. The argument just dissolves. The other side has no one to fight with anymore. And you are left, not with the cheap and the temporary prize of being right, but with the deep and the lasting and the truly victorious feeling of a mind that is finally and completely at peace. Let's explore another of these quiet and these very simple and these deeply calming images from the Tao Te Ching. We've talked about the usefulness of the empty bowl. Now, let's look at a similar idea, but one that contains a sense of energy, of life, and of a deep and an inexhaustible power. It is the image of the bellows. A bellows is a very simple tool used by a blacksmith to blow air onto a fire to make it hotter. It's a kind of accordion-like bag with a nozzle at one end and two handles at the other. And the Tao Te Ching asks us to look at it and to see in its simple action a profound secret about the nature of the universe and of our own minds. The book says, "The space between heaven and earth, is it not like a bellows? It is empty, and yet it is never exhausted. The more you move it, the more it gives." Let's just rest with that image for a moment. A bellows, when it is at rest, it is essentially a bag of nothing. It is a container of empty space. And if you did not know its purpose, you might look at it and think that it is a useless and an empty thing. But the moment you begin to use it, the moment you pull the handles apart, that emptiness immediately draws the air in. And the moment you push the handles together, it sends that air out in a powerful and a focused and a life-giving stream. And no matter how many times you do this, it never runs out of air to give. It is empty, and yet it is the source of an endless supply of energy. Its power comes directly from its emptiness. The more it is used, the more it produces. And the book tells us that the universe itself is like this. The vast, empty space between the earth and the sky is not a dead and a useless void. It is a great and a silent and a cosmic bellows. It is the inexhaustible source from which all life, all energy, and all movement arises. And this is a profound and a deeply calming idea for us as we lie here now, because so often we feel that we are the opposite of this. We feel that we are not empty and inexhaustible. We feel that we are full and very, very exhausted. At the end of a long day, our minds can feel like a bellows that has been stuffed full of heavy rocks. It is full of our worries, full of our plans, full of our memories. And because it is so full, it cannot work properly. We try to draw in a new and a fresh and a peaceful thought, but there is no room. We try to produce a calm and a focused energy, but the mechanism is jammed. We feel completely and utterly depleted. The wisdom of the Tao Te Ching is an invitation to gently and to quietly empty out the bellows of our own mind. It is the permission to let go of all the heavy rocks of our own thinking, to let go of the need to be full of knowledge and full of plans and full of opinions. And as you let this fullness go, you can begin to feel a new and a different kind of state. You can begin to feel the quiet and the powerful and the deeply restful state of your own inner emptiness. This is not a weak or a depleted state. This is the state of the bellows at rest. It is a state of profound and of deep and of almost limitless potential. It is a quiet readiness. It is a mind that is no longer struggling, no longer jammed. It is a mind that is open and it is clear. And from this quiet and this receptive emptiness, the book tells us a new and a very natural kind of energy can arise, all on its own. It is not the frantic and the forced and the tiring energy of our daily striving. It is the quiet and the steady and the deeply calming energy of the bellows. It is the simple and the natural and the completely inexhaustible rhythm of your own breath, moving in and moving out. effortlessly filling and emptying, and in that simple, rhythmic motion, bringing a quiet and a life-giving energy to your entire resting body. Let's take a quiet and a final journey into one more of these simple and these beautiful and these deeply calming images from the Tao Te Ching. We have seen the wisdom of water, of the valley, of the empty bowl. Now, let's look at the wisdom of a simple and an ancient and a very common object. The wisdom of a spinning wheel. The book says, 30 spokes share the wheel's hub. It is the center hole that makes it useful. I want you to just picture that in your mind for a moment. A simple wooden cartwheel. You have the outer rim, the part that touches the rough and the uneven ground. And then you have all the spokes, the thin pieces of wood that connect that outer rim to the very center. And right at the very heart of the wheel, there is a small and a simple and a completely empty hole, the hub. Now, think about what happens when the wheel is in motion. The outer rim is a scene of constant and of frantic and of very jarring activity. It is bumping along the road. It is splashing through mud. It is rattling over stones. It is moving very, very fast. It is a place of noise and of effort and of constant, jarring change. And the spokes, they are also in a state of constant motion. They are a blur of movement, spinning around and around so fast that you can't even distinguish one from the other. They are the connection between the chaotic outside and the quiet inside. But what is happening at the exact same time, right at the very center of the wheel? At the hub? The hub is a place of profound and of deep and of almost perfect stillness. Even as the rim is rattling and bumping and spinning at a great speed, the very center, the empty hole, is in a state of complete and of unwavering calm. It is the unmoving center of a world of motion. And not only is it calm, but it is the source of the wheel's entire strength and its entire purpose. It is the still and the quiet and the empty point around which all the frantic activity revolves. Without that still and that silent center, the wheel would just be a useless and a chaotic jumble of wood. And the Tao Te Ching is telling us that our own lives and our own minds are just like this wheel. The outer rim of the wheel is the world of our daily activities. It is our jobs, our relationships, our to-do lists. It is the world of the senses, a world of constant and of noisy and of often very jarring motion. It is the part of our life that is always bumping along the rough road of reality. And the spokes are our thoughts, our emotions, our worries. They are the things that are always spinning, always in a blur, always connecting our chaotic outer world to our quiet inner one. And our inner expert, the part of our mind that is always trying to manage everything, spends all of its time and all of its energy out there on the rim. It is frantically trying to smooth out the road. It is trying to control the speed of the wheel. It is trying to count the spinning spokes. It is living in a state of constant and of noisy and of deeply exhausting activity. But the great and the quiet and the very wise secret of the Tao is that you don't have to live on the rim. The Taoist wisdom is an invitation to gently and to quietly and to deliberately bring your attention away from the chaotic outer edge of your life and to let it come to rest in the one place that is always and forever still. It is an invitation to find the hub. And this hub, this quiet and unmoving center, is always here. It is always available to you. It is the deep and the silent and the eternally peaceful part of your own awareness that exists just behind all the spinning thoughts and just behind all the noisy events of your day. As you lie here now, you can perform this quiet journey. You can let the outer world of your day, the rim of the wheel, just spin itself out. And you can let the spokes of your own thoughts just blur into a quiet background. And you can just gently and with a great sense of relief allow your own awareness to come to rest in that silent and that still and that completely untroubled center of your own being. We have now traveled a long and a quiet way on this path together. We have explored the wisdom of water, the emptiness of the bowl, and the stillness at the center of the spinning wheel. And all of these simple, and these beautiful, and these very earthly images are pointing toward one final and a much more mysterious idea. The Tao Te Ching makes a very strange and a very beautiful claim. It says, the greatest music has the faintest sound. And then it goes even further, and it says, the greatest form has no shape. This is the last and the quietest and the most gentle paradox we will explore tonight. In our world, we are taught to value what is clear and what is distinct and what is loud. When we think of great music, we think of a powerful symphony with its soaring melodies and its dramatic crescendos. We think of a sound that fills up the entire room, a sound that grabs our attention and demands to be heard. But the Tao Te Ching is inviting us to listen for a different kind of music, a quieter kind, a more subtle kind. Imagine you are standing in a great and a very ancient forest in the middle of the night. At first, you might say that the forest is silent. There are no loud noises. There is no symphony. But if you stand there for a while and you let your hearing become very, very sensitive, you begin to notice something. You begin to hear a different kind of sound. You hear the almost imperceptible rustle of a single leaf stirring in a faint breeze. You hear the tiny, distant snap of a twig on the forest floor. You hear the quiet and the almost inaudible sound of your own breathing. And you realize that the forest is not silent at all. It is filled with a very, very quiet and a very, very subtle music. And this music is, in its own way, much deeper and much more profound and much more peaceful than any loud symphony could ever be. Because to hear this music, you yourself have to become very, very quiet. You have to be in a state of profound and of receptive stillness. And the book tells us that this is the state of a truly wise and a truly peaceful mind. All day long, our minds are listening to a very loud kind of music. It is the music of our own thoughts, the loud and the dramatic and the often very repetitive melodies of our own worries, our own plans, our own inner commentary. And this music is so loud that it drowns out everything else. The gentle practice of the Tao is the practice of slowly and gently turning the volume down on this inner noise. It is the practice of letting the loud and the crashing and the dramatic symphony of your own striving mind begin to fade away. And as it fades, you can begin to listen for that other, quieter music. It is the faint and the subtle and the almost silent music of your own being. It is the quiet and the gentle and the rhythmic sound of your own breath moving in and out. It is the deep and the silent and the steady beat of your own heart. It is the simple and the profound and the deeply peaceful music of a body that is finally and truly at rest. This is the greatest music. It is the music that has been playing underneath the noise all along. It requires no effort to find. You only have to become quiet enough to hear it. So as you lie here now, you can let the loud symphony of your day finally come to an end. The orchestra has packed up its instruments and gone home. And in the great and the beautiful and the deeply peaceful silence that is left behind, you can just listen. Listen to the faint and the gentle and the deeply calming music of your own quiet breath. And let that be the last and the softest and the most beautiful sound that you hear as you drift gently off to sleep. We have just been listening for the faintest sound, for the quiet and the subtle music that can only be heard when our own minds become still. And this leads us to another strange and a very beautiful idea from this ancient book. It is an idea not about how we listen, but about how we see. The Tao Te Ching says that the wise person, the one who is in harmony with the way, looks at the world with a mind that is muddled, or dim, or darkened. Now, this is an idea that goes against every single thing we are taught to value. In our culture, a bright mind is the highest compliment. We want to be sharp and clear and brilliant. We see clarity as the ultimate goal of thinking. To be dim or muddled is to be confused, to be slow, to be ignorant. It is a state that we spend our entire lives trying to avoid. And yet, the Tao Te Ching is telling us that it is in this very state that a deep and a quiet wisdom can be found. So what could this possibly mean? Let's think about the bright mind. A bright mind is like a powerful, focused beam of a flashlight in a dark room. It is a tool for analysis. It shines its intense light on one thing at a time, and it sees every single detail of that one thing with a perfect and a sharp and a very precise clarity. It takes the world and it breaks it down into its component parts. It names them, it categorizes them, it judges them. This is the mind of the scientist, the critic, the planner. It is an incredibly useful tool for navigating our day. But there is a cost to this kind of seeing. When you are focused on the intricate details of a single leaf, you can no longer see the whole tree. And when you are focused on the whole tree, you can no longer see the entire forest. The bright, analytical mind, in its quest for clarity, carves the world up into a million tiny, separate pieces. And it can leave us feeling like we are living in a world that is fragmented and disconnected and made up of nothing but sharp edges. The darkened mind is a completely different way of seeing. It is not a focused beam of a flashlight. It is the soft and the gentle and the all-encompassing light of twilight. Imagine sitting in a garden as the sun goes down. The bright, harsh light of the day has faded. You can no longer see the individual veins on a flower petal. You cannot count the number of leaves on a branch. The sharp edges of everything have begun to soften. The world is becoming a little bit blurry, a little bit muddled. And what happens in this state? You stop analyzing. You stop categorizing. And you start to feel. You feel the presence of the whole garden at once. You feel the connection between the flower and the tree and the cooling air. You see the world not as a collection of separate objects, but as a single and a whole and a deeply mysterious presence. You are not thinking about the garden. You are simply being with it. This is the quiet wisdom of the darkened mind. It is the mind that has stopped its frantic need to take everything apart and has instead learned to see the gentle wholeness of things. And this is a profound and a very healing idea for us as we lie here at the end of the day. Because the day is the time for the bright mind. It is the time for analysis, and for plans, and for sharp-edged thoughts. But the night is the time for the darkened mind. The act of turning off the lights in your room is a physical echo of what you can now allow to happen in your own mind. You can let the bright, and the harsh, and the analytical light of your own thinking begin to dim. You don't need to have sharp, and clear, and perfectly formed thoughts right now. It is okay for things to be a little bit blurry. It is okay for your mind to be a little bit muddled. This is not a state of ignorance. It is a state of deep and of quiet and of receptive wisdom. It is the mind gently letting go of its sharp edges and allowing itself to dissolve into the soft and the whole and the deeply peaceful darkness of the night. We have now wandered a long and a quiet way on this path through the Tao Te Ching. We have walked with the flowing water. We have sat with the gnarled and useless tree. We have felt the stillness at the center of the spinning wheel. We have listened for the faintest sound, and we have looked at the world with a gentle, darkened mind. And all of these different paths, all of these quiet and beautiful metaphors, are all leading us back to one single and a very simple and a very peaceful destination. The book describes this destination with a beautiful phrase. It says that the ultimate goal of all things is to return to the root. Let's just think about that image for a moment. A great and a beautiful tree. All year long, it is a creature of the outside world. In the spring, it puts forth its new leaves. In the summer, it is a vibrant and a green and a very active being, reaching up toward the sun, providing shade, producing fruit. It is in a state of doing. But then, as the year begins to turn, as the days grow shorter and the air grows cooler, a great and a quiet change begins to happen. The tree begins to let go. It lets its leaves turn from green to gold to red, and then it lets them fall, without a struggle, to the ground. It lets its fruit drop. It pulls all of its energy, all of its life force, out of its branches, out of its trunk. And it draws that energy all the way down, 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 into the deep and the dark and the silent and the unseen part of itself. It returns to its root. And in this state, in the quiet of winter, the tree appears to the outside world to be dead. It is not beautiful. It is not productive. It is just a stark and a still and a silent silhouette against the gray sky. But we know that it is not dead. It is in a state of profound and of deep and of absolutely essential rest. It is in its root that it finds its stability. It is in its root that it gathers its strength. It is in its root that it quietly and patiently waits until the time is right to begin the cycle of growth all over again. The return to the root is not an end. It is the necessary and the vital preparation for a new beginning. And the Tao Te Ching is telling us that we, too, are like these trees. All day long, we are living in our branches. We are reaching out into the world. We are being productive. We are interacting with other people. Our energy is flowing outward. And the end of the day, the quiet of the night, is our time to return to the root. It is the time to let go of all the leaves of the day, to let the conversations, the tasks, the worries just gently and without a struggle fall away. It is the time to pull our energy and our attention and our awareness away from the busy outer world and to let it sink down, down, down into the deep and the quiet and the very still center of our own being. This is what you are doing right now as you lie here in this bed. You are not just resting your body. You are participating in a deep and a natural and a very ancient rhythm. You are returning to your own root. This is not a state of emptiness or of nothingness. It is a state of profound and of deep and of quiet and of restorative power. It is the place where you gather your strength. It is the place where you find your stability. And it is the place where you can quietly and peacefully and without any effort at all, just be. Just be the silent and the still and the deeply resting tree in the quiet and the deep and the peaceful winter of the night. As we draw closer to the end of our quiet walk, as we rest here in this deep and this silent place at the root of our own being, the Tao Te Ching offers us a final and a very simple and a very beautiful piece of wisdom to carry with us. After all of its strange paradoxes and all of its quiet metaphors, the book, in one of its later chapters, becomes very direct. It says that it has three precious things, three things that it holds on to and that it treasures above all else. And these three treasures are, in a way, the entire philosophy condensed down into three simple words. The first treasure, it says, is compassion, or, in a more direct translation, it is the word for kindness or mercy. This is a very gentle and a very different kind of strength from the one we usually think of. It is not the strength of being right or the strength of being powerful. It is the quiet and the resilient and the deeply healing strength that is found in a heart that is kind. And it is a kindness that flows in two directions. It is a kindness that we are meant to show to others, yes. But just as importantly, and perhaps even more importantly, it is a kindness that we are meant to show to ourselves. It is the compassion to forgive yourself for the mistakes of the day. It is the mercy to not hold yourself to an impossible standard of perfection. It is the simple and the profound and the deeply calming act of treating your own tired mind and your own tired body with a gentle and a loving hand. The second treasure, it says, is simplicity. Sometimes this is translated as frugality or moderation. This is the quiet wisdom that we have seen in so many of the metaphors we have explored tonight. It is the wisdom of the uncarved block, which does not need to be carved into a complicated shape. It is the wisdom of the empty bowl, which finds its usefulness in not being full. It is the wisdom of knowing when the cup is full and when it is time to stop. It is the great and the profound and the deeply freeing discovery that happiness is not found in adding more and more things to our lives. It is found in gently and quietly and without a struggle, letting go of all the things that are not essential. It is the discovery that the more simple our lives become, the more peaceful our minds can be. And the third and the final treasure, it says, is humility. This is the quiet strength of the water, which always seeks the lowest place, and in doing so, becomes the master of all things. It is the wisdom of the valley, which is content to be low, and in doing so, becomes a place of great life and of great nourishment. It is the great and the surprising and the deeply relaxing freedom that comes from letting go of the need to be important. It is the permission you can give yourself to not have all the answers, to not always be the expert, to not always be the one who is in control. It is the quiet and the gentle and the deeply restful state of a mind that is no longer trying to be a mountain peak and is content to just be a quiet and a receptive and a peaceful valley. Compassion, simplicity, humility, these are not grand, and they are not complicated, and they are not dramatic ideas. They are quiet, they are gentle, they are simple, and the book tells us that these are the most precious things in the entire world. They are the three quiet guides that can lead us, at the end of any day, and in the middle of any difficulty, back to the deep and the silent, and the very peaceful home that is waiting for us inside our own hearts. We have just been resting in the quiet and the beautiful thought of those three treasures: compassion, simplicity, and humility. And it can be easy to hear those words and to feel a sense of peace. But there is also a quiet and a very human question that can arise. If this simple and this natural and this compassionate state is our true home, then why does it feel so difficult to live there? Why do our lives so often feel the exact opposite of this? Why do they feel so complicated and so full and so driven by the need to be important? And the book says that in the beginning, the uncarved block was just allowed to be. But then, a new idea came into the world, the idea of making and doing. And the first rulers, the first organizers of the world, took the simple and the natural and the uncarved block of humanity, and they began to carve it up. They carved it into different shapes, and they gave those shapes names. They invented the ideas of right and wrong. They invented the ideas of good and bad. They invented rituals and rules and 1,000 different labels to organize the world. And they did this with the best of intentions. They were trying to create order out of the natural chaos of life. They were trying to make things better, more efficient, more moral. But the book tells us that the moment the uncarved block was carved, something precious was lost. The moment you give a thing a name, you create its opposite. The moment you create the idea of good, you automatically create the idea of not good. The moment you create a rule, you create the possibility of breaking that rule. And so, the world became a much more complicated and a much more stressful place. Our simple and our natural and our unified state of being was carved up into 1,000 different and often conflicting pieces. And our minds became a place of constant judgment, a place of constant calculation. Am I being good enough? Am I following the rules? Am I living up to the labels? This is the quiet tragedy that the book points to. Our natural state is one of simple and of peaceful and of unified being. But the very process of living in a complicated human world, a world of names and of rules and of judgments, is a process that is always and gently and inevitably pulling us away from that state. And this is not a reason for despair. It is simply a quiet and a compassionate acknowledgement of the truth of our lives. It is the book's way of saying, it's not your fault that you feel this way. It's not your fault that your mind is so full and so complicated. This is the nature of the world that has been built. And the wisdom of the Tao is not to try and smash this complicated world. It is not a call for revolution. It is a much quieter and a much more personal invitation. It is an invitation to simply remember. To remember, in the quiet of the night, when all the rules and all the labels of the day have been put aside, that underneath all of that carving, underneath all that complexity, the simple and the solid and the deeply peaceful nature of your own uncarved self is still there. It has never gone away. And for a few quiet and a few precious hours, you can just let go of all the complicated shapes you have to be during the day, and you can just return to it. We have now come to the end of the path, and we find ourselves standing on the bank of a great and a silent and a very slow-moving river. And this river is the final and the most important and the most peaceful metaphor that the Tao Te Ching has to offer us. The river is the Tao itself. It is the great and the natural and the effortless flow of all things. It is the current of life, always moving, always changing, and always, in its own time, finding its way to the great and the peaceful ocean. All day long, we live our lives as if we are separate from this river. We stand on the bank and we make our plans. We build our dams of control. We worry about where the river is going. We sometimes even try to run upstream, struggling against the current, believing that we know a better way. And this is the source of all our striving, and all our tension, and all our exhaustion. But now, as you lie here at the very end of the day, the gentle and the final invitation of this ancient book is to simply stop. To stop standing on the bank. To stop planning. To stop worrying. And to do the simplest and the most natural and the most trusting thing of all. It is the invitation to just gently and without any fear step into the water and to just let the river carry you. This is the final and the most complete act of Wu Wei, of effortless action. It is the great and the peaceful surrender of your own small and your own separate and your own very tired will to the great and the wise and the infinitely peaceful flow of the way. You do not have to know where the river is going. You do not have to steer. You do not have to paddle. The river knows the way. It has known the way since the beginning of time. And it is a way that leads, always and inevitably, to a place of deep and of quiet and of peaceful rest. So, as you lie here now, you can perform this quiet and this beautiful act in your own mind. You can let go of the solid and the separate and the striving bank of your own thinking mind. And you can just feel yourself gently dissolving into the great and the quiet and the supportive current of your own being. Let the river of your own breath be the current that carries you now. The gentle and the rhythmic and the completely effortless rise and fall. It is a current that you do not have to create. It is a current that you do not have to control. Your only work is to simply allow yourself to be carried by it. So let go now. Let go of the day. Let go of the book. Let go of these words. Let go of the one who has been trying so hard. And just float. Just let the river carry you. Let it carry you down the long and the dark and the very quiet and the very peaceful passage of the night. Trust in its flow. Trust in its wisdom. And just allow it to gently and to silently and in its own perfect time carry you all the way home.